Good luck, everybody. We're in the sugya of treifis. We're basically finishing the sugya of treifis tonight. And then tomorrow, we're going to begin the sugya of the animals that we can eat and the simanim of the animals. It's a very interesting sugya because we just take for granted, but there's so much to it. Bez Hashem, we'll see that tomorrow. Don't miss it. Okay, we're up to the last line on Nun Zayin Amid Beis. Amar Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, halacha treifa yoledes. A treif is able to go ahead and have children, umishabachas, and also improve. Even though we said a treifa can't live beyond Yud Beis Chodesh, or eventually it's going to die, even if you hold treifa chaya, right? Nonetheless, it is able to have children, able to father children, umishabachas, and also to get the body to be improved. However, we said not in what it's a treifa for. It's not going to get better in what it's a treifa for. It won't get better. It'll get better in another part of its body. Okay, so Amar Meimar says a Meimar. Hani beya de tarfa. You have the eggs of treifas. In other words, you have a treifa, a chicken. That's a treifa. Shichla kama, the first batch. The first batch is asira. So we're speaking about, guys, it had the egg in it when it became a treifa. So that's uba yerachimai. In other words, it was fine. It had an egg that was fine. It then became a treifa, and now the egg is considered part of the mother. Since the mother's a treifa, the egg's a treifa. Mikan ve'elich. Any child it'll have in the future. Now, obviously, guys, this must hold like Rav Acher Bar Yaakov, that a treifa is yoledes, right? It's going to have future children, and it's a treifa. That's important. That it, there are two things that cause this egg to be fertilized. One, the mother. Two, the father. Zeh, the one that's part with the treifa. V'zeh, and the father, which is mutter. Zeh v'zeh goyim is mutter. There's a big kasha on this. If it's discussed, is l'chayra, even forget zeh v'zeh goyim. Once it's part of the mother, it should be asa, right? Once it's part of the mother, it should be asa. And there's a lot of raid. Art School brings down a good few sources. Now, Esi Ravashi la Meimar, Vishovin bebeitzas treifa she'asura. Vishovim, the two man the Armim who are going to be arguing in the Gemara below, Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanon, the Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanon who argue by the vlad of a behemoth treifa. Guys, the Gemara we're going to have in a second. This is according to Rashi. Taisus disagrees. According to Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanon who are going to argue by the vlad of a behemoth that's a treifa, they both maida that the beitza of a treif is asa, mifisha godla be'isr, right? Because it was godla be'isr. Mashma, that what? That zev is a goyim, it's still asa. So what you're telling me, says Ravashi, said Amemar, that zev is a goyim is going to be mutter over here. Yes? 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 We have machloikis tanoim by the vlad of a behema. They both admit by a l'chayra in the havamina, by an egg of a treifa, shed godla. What does godla mean? Godla, that it was megadel, it grew after it was a treifa. So therefore, it was zevez egorim, that it's aser, kasha on ameimar. And for the Gemara, hasam b'dis safna ma'ara, the egg was not fertilized. What happened was the chicken sat in the sand, and the sand was warm. So it created the egg. So it's only zegorim. And only there's no male over here, guys. It's only the treifa itself. The male, it's a treifa. But einachinami, had there been a male involved, then it would be mutter. Hadn't been male, mutter. Right? Why do you have to go ahead and give this teretz, speaking that it fertilized it doesn't mean fertilized. I mean, it created the egg by created an egg by rubbing itself in the sand. You could have given a simple teretz. You know when it's asa? When it wasn't zevez egorim. When it became a treifa with the egg already in it. We said, if the egg was in it and it became a treifa, it's ubi yerachimo. Why didn't the Gemara give that teretz? What's your kasha? You're asking me, the Vishavim, they both say that what? That the egg is even though they argue by behema, they both agree by an egg that it's asa. Why to say have to come on to a doichik dikateretz? They were speaking where what? Where it was not a male involved, but it was the sand. You could have given a teretz. There was a male. However, it was zeh the kosher, totally good. And then when it was a pregnant, when the egg was in it, then it became a treifa. Why didn't you give that teretz? It says, when it came godla, it should not say godla, it grew in it, but gomra mi boile, it was finished. Godla means that it wasn't there before, and Godla and it was Megadel. Gomra means it was there before and was completed. Since the lashon of the brises v'shavim bebeitzus trefish asurim v'fnei Godla, since it said Godla, we knew it wasn't pregnant until the what? Until the male is with it. Therefore, he had to say it's speaking what? Godla. How is it Godel? As a result of rubbing itself in the sand, and therefore it was Zegorim. Elahaditnan, a Mishnah, Ahaditanya, a Brisa, guys, a Brisa. Vlad Treifa, Rabbi Eliezer, Oimer lo yikorev l'gabe mizbeach. You can't bring on mizbeach. Rabbi Yeshua, Oimer yakrev. Why are they arguing in? In other words, now that you say this teretz and you say zev zegorim would be asar or mut l'chayra. In other words, you tell me zev zegorim is mutter, and it's speaking where the sand did the job. So now we have a way to explain the machlokes between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Elazar. B'shenitrafa u'leb'seif ibra. It's speaking where it was a treifa, and then it became pregnant. Again, this has to be according to Rav Acha Yaakov that a treif is yeledes. Rabbi Eliezer sava zev zegorim asar. Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion zev zegorim is asar. Memela, even though there was a male involved that was totally mutter, the female that was a treifa, so it's goyim, it's asar. Rabbi Yeshua sava zev zegorim mutter, right? Zev zegorim is mutter. Okay, I mean, they're arguing by a carbon, whether you can bring it as a carbon now. If this is the Sfaras HaMachloikis, guys, of Zeh v'Zeh, why do you say it's only us as a carbon? If you hold Zeh v'Zeh Gorim is Asar, it's a treifa, even a hedyot can't eat it. Forget about a carbon. Even a hedyot won't be able to eat it, guys. Good. On that, Gemara says, you know why? It says the Gemara, L'idea Koyach Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yeshua, to tell us the koyach of Rabbi Yeshua, that feel legavoya nami shari, even for legavoya, it's also permitted. You might think that when zev going mutter, that's the Inyan what? That's the Inyan hedyot, the Inyan a regular chulin. Masha'en kain, if it's the kachim, I would think that hakev nola pechasecha, bring it to your governors. In other words, by kachim, we got to be squeaky clean. I would think it's not squeaky clean. Kamash Mula Rabbi Yeshua, Sevazeh Gorim's Muta. And you know why you're telling by kachim? Afilu be kachim. Right? Fred Gemara, Valiflugu lehedyet. Go ahead and argue by a hedyet. Yeah, meaning Lahidia Koyach to Rabbi Eliezer, that even by a hedyet, where it's not so shver, it's still aser. Dafilu lehedyet nami aser. Says the Koyach that Adif. We know, right? It's always easy to say asar. To mutter is a bigger koyach that they're adiflay. Good. Umoidim, and then we conclude the statement, and they're both moida. The beitzas treifa sasura be the safna ma'ara. Why? The chad goyim hu, that it's one goyim. Okay, so here this is Rav Acha Yaakov says the halacha is that a treif is yeledes. Amema runs with it, guys. Amema runs with it. He says, therefore, the first brood is asa al ubi yerachimai. The second brood will be muta al swat zeveze goyrim, right? And even zev goyrim. And so, l'chayra, what about Rav Ashi as the kasha? We see that it's asa. We're saying asa. That's only zeh goyrim. Only zeh goyrim. Good. Okay. Rav Acha Savar, okay. Rav Acha Savar, Rav Acha B'Yakov, Masino L'Damei Mekidam. Rav Acha, he held like Rav Acha B'Yakov that a treif is yoledes, and he learned the machloikis between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer based upon Zevazeh Goyrim Kidda Amoran, like we said. So that's a statement qualifying the Pies Gemara. Ravina Le'Savala Kid Rav Acha B'Yakov. So now you got a problem, meaning he says a treifa eni yeledes. So if a treifa eni yeledes, what's this whole machloikis by eggs? What's the machloikis by Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua by animals? Like what's going on over here? So now we're going to learn the Gemara, the same Gemara, with Ravina's insight that a treifa ain't a yoledes. Good. Umasla da mema b'hai lishna. He learned a mema in this lashon. In other words, Rav Acha bar Yaakov learned a mema in that lashon, and Rav Acha learned a mema in that lashon, and we have Ravina learning a mema in this lashon. Oma mema hani beya the suffix treifa. He added one word, guys. He didn't say beya treifa, beya suffix treifa. A little different. Yes, Harold.
Just I want to take a page out of May's textbook. Isn't that a mitzias? Whether it could whether treifa could be nolad or not.
What do you mean?
I'm saying because we were arguing here.
Okay, so look at Taisus, guys. Look at the last Taisus on Nun Zion. Hesh is saying very good. Look at the similar treifa kol she'ena yoledes. Yesh kama behemoth shepesakas mileid. There are many animals that stop giving birth, and we don't consider them treifas. Ella boy lemeimar im yoledes biyudua she'ena treifa. If it has a child, you know what? It's not a treifa. Hesh. You know what it's saying?
Yeah.
Okay. If, in other words, if it's mitzias is if an animal has fathers or mothers a child, you know it's not a treifa. That would be very geschmack with according to what you're saying. Yes, you good?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, okay, so now we're asking now again going back to Ravina, how are we learning pshat in the machlokes? If you don't hold like Rav Acha bar Yaakov that it's yoledes, meaning you can't. So what's the story over here? So Omar Hani Beis the suffix treifa. The shklakama mashinanlu, the first batch will wait. Ihadra v'tana, if it hit that his pshadesh. If it has another batch, sharian, it's mutta, because it wasn't a treifa. Since it had another batch, the first batch was that it wasn't a treifa. It's a suffix. We don't know if this chicken's a treifa or not. Yeah. So now it gives birth and it's a suffix. We keep it, and guess what? If it has another batch, then you know what? It's not a treifa, because if it was a treifa, it couldn't have the other batch. V'loi asirin, and if not, it's going to be asa. If it doesn't have another batch, it's asa. That's it. So, Hesh, you see, I don't understand it. It's mitzias, not the mitzias is whether it does or doesn't. We just need a way of ascertaining, and that we figure out, right? Says Gemara. Esir Ravashi la meimar umoidim bebeitzas treifa she'asura, and the moida machloikas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua are their moida by the beitza of a treifa that it's asa if they should godla beisser because it grew beisser. Amalei. So Esrei Rav Yaakov, you see that the first batch is godla beisser. So Amalei hasan b'deshichla kama. You're not speaking about the second one. In other words, you're telling me the treifa can't give birth. What does it say over here? It says over here, what does godla mean, guys? Godla means that it grows, meaning it's giving birth. It wasn't there before, it's there now. So how can you possibly entertain that it's not able to give birth? You see, Godla, it's having a child, it's having an egg. You with me? You're having an egg. The kasha, on that the Gemara answers, we're speaking about the first batch. Amalei Hasan b'the Shichla Kama, this first batch, which was pregnant when it became a treifa. In Cain Godla, it shouldn't say Godla, Gomra Meboile. It should say it finishes it off. In other words, it didn't Godla, it was there and it completed it. On that the Gemara says, Tani Gomra. Good, learn Gomra. Elohadet Nan. Vlad treifa Rebbe Eliezer Oimer Lo Yaakov L'Gam Mizbeach. Rebbe Yeshua Oimer Yaakov. But my commitment, what's the machlokes? Guys, if it's not Shayach Zevazeh Goyrim, because it's not Sayach Goyrim, it can't give birth. It can't give birth. So, Vlad of Behem, what's the machlokes? If it's a treifa. So you tell me it's a treifa, if it can't give birth, what's the machlokes? Kishe Ibra L'B'Seif Netrifa, Pashat. It's speaking where it was pregnant and then became a treifa. You're right. After it became a treifa, it can't get pregnant. It was pregnant before it became a treifa. That's similar to the first batch. Now, what's the machlokes then? What's the machlokes then? What's Rabbi Yeshua's heta? On that, Rabbi Eliezer sava uba yerachimai. Therefore, it's asa. Rabbi Yeshua sava uba lab yerachimai. So, according to Ravina in Ameimar, the machlokes between Rabbi Yeshua is not zev zeh goyrim because it's not shaykh zev zeh goyrim because you can't have a child. The machlokes is whether uba yerachimai or not. It's because it's why? Because it's speaking about one that was pregnant before it became a treifa. Because after it became a treifa, it can't get pregnant. So it's speaking why it was pregnant before. Now, what's the shaila? Why is it asa? Uba yerachimai. Rabbi Yeshua, why is it muta? Uba lab yerachimai. Ihachi. The same dialogue. Why they're arguing what? By just for karbanis, they can argue by Chulin. And for the Gemara, the Rabbi Yeshua, right, to teach you the correct Rabbi Yeshua that even by Hegdish, you'll be able to use this as a carbon. For the Gemara, same teretz, correct the Torah adaflay. Umoidim, vadai bebeis treifa shasura, and when they're moida by a vadai beis treifa shasura b'deshich lekama, right? By timer, kufihi. You know, it's Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua makes a distinction between a behema and an egg. Even though he holds by a behema, uba lab yerechimahu, he holds by an egg that it's gufa of the animal, gufa of the chicken. He holds that it's gufa of the chicken. If you look at Rashi, b'shich lekama, the kivin de agida bay, the me'ura begidin, since it's connected to the chicken, because if you ever see an egg inside, it has gidin in the walls connecting it, kigufa damya. In other words, this is more than uba yerechimai. Rabbi Yeshua says uba yerechimai is not, but beitza yerechimai is, because kigufa damya, right? It's not the yerech of the mother, it is the mother. It is the mother. So therefore, Rabbi Yeshua, who matters a treifa of a vlad, would answer a egg of even though it's part, both were part of them at the time. Guys, you good? How we doing? The hilchasa bizachar kol shnei masa chaydesh, to check for zachar is 12 months. B'nekeva kol shnei yoledes. Nekeva, it can't, a zachar you'd have to wait 12 months to see if it lives, and in a keva kol shnei yoledes. And if it gives birth beforehand, then what? Then it is it's a sign. It's not a treifa. Rav Huna, since we're discussing 12 months, kol beria she'ein by etzem, any beria that doesn't have a backbone, any insect, miskayem yubeis chayde, eno miskayem yubeis chayde. You never have an insect that can live 12 months. Amra Papa, shmami namid Rav Huna, a funny din. Okay, fellas, we're going to get to a Gemara in a few days, in about a week. We're going to get to the sugya of sheretz hasheretz alo aretz. Rashi's shita is fascinating. If you have a plant, and in the plant, in the vegetable, you have a bug, and it's connected to the ground. Since it's connected to the ground, right? Since it's connected to the ground, as soon as it moves, it's considered sheretz hasheretz alo aretz. Because since it's connected to the ground, it's considered on the ground already. If it's disconnected and it moves, then it's not. It's still not asar until it leaves and gets on the ground. But as long as it's in the disattached plant, it's not on the ground. This is Rashi's shita. Again, a plant that's a vegetable, you have a bug in the vegetable that's connected. If it moves, if it doesn't move according to Rashi, this is Rashi. I'm only going Rashi now. If it doesn't move, it's not asar because it's not shayritz. If it does move, it's shayritz alo aretz because it's connected to the ground. If it's not connected to the ground, as long as it's in the vegetable, it's mutter. Why? Because it's not shayritz alo aretz. That's what you have to know. So now, Shmami no Rav Huna, the Amar Shmuel Kishais, like Kisha, let's say a gourd, Shehisliya be'aveha, that it's still, you have Hisliya becomes wormy, be'iveha when it's connected to the ground, Asura, it's Asa. Okay, good. Now, where do we need Rav Huna's din? Hani Tamri, Dekada, they have dates in a barrel. The Basa Tresa Yarche Shasa, after 12 months, Shayin, it's going to be Mutta. After 12 months, it's going to be Mutta. Right? Says Rashi. Shehisliyoi, Ve'en Yedua in B'mechuber in Betalish. You have these dates in the barrel, they became wormy. I want to know if they were wormy when it was mechuba to the ground and the usr, or was wormy afterwards, and then it'll be muta. So now, if it's after 12 years, the labasa tresi shasa sharyin, they're permitted. The even mechuber hisliya lehavi chai ahashta. Because if there was a mechuber, they wouldn't be living this long. So using 12 months as a barometer, you know for sure that it wasn't a mechuba because it's after 12 months. Memela, it would be muta. Okay, why does it mean? It doesn't mean you could eat the bug. Why does it mean it made the bug disintegrates? Is I am the rush. The rush is the source over here. Amarav, less baka bayuma. There's no baka, a gnat that can live for a day. For less didva, a fly bashasa that can live a year. Amalei Rapapa Labaya. How could you say that? Va'ami and she, people say, Shev Shnei Imra Baksa, Mibaka, 7 years, the female gnat stays away from the male gnat. The Amrulay, she says to him, Chazise Levar Mechuza, did you see that guy from Mechuza? The Sacha B'maya, he went swimming. The Sulik, he came up. The Ichrich Besadina, he wrapped himself in his blanket. And you sat on it, and you sucked blood from him. And you didn't invite me. That's what people used to say. I love it. What's the bottom line? It doesn't say a day. It says 7 years. According to you, a boxer can survive a day, and you tell me 7 years. So Amalei. So Abaya said to Papa, "Well, Taimei Chod Aminchi." That people say is another common saying. Shisa money parsla, 6 monim of iron. Talulei lebaka. The baka has suspended the cornisei in its horns, or it's some type of in its snout. It's anyway. There's no way. Mi ika iu gufa. Mi ika iu gufa kamahava. How much does it weigh? When we're going ahead and making this cheshbon of 6 mana, it must be mana of a baksa. So discussing, right? Discussing its years. And Rashi says regoyim, mamish minutes. It's 7 minutes. We're discussing minutes. Tan Hasam. Behema balas hesraglayim. Okay, we have to see this since you got your Sichas Chulin, you want to get your money's worth. Page Shin Sadik Tes. Okay, so you have the 3-legged one, the 3-handed one, and the 3-legged one. Okay, what's the difference? Okay, what's the difference? Let's see. Hesh, you have to mute yourself, Hesh. Oh, no, you're muted. Okay, good. Anyway, so we have this the Hemabas Heraglayim, Oishain Leil Shalish. If it has 5 or it only has 3, it's missing 1. How is it mum? It's a mum. What does a mum mean? You can't bring this a carbon, but is it kosher? It's kosher. Amar Rav Huna, Loishanu El Shechasav Yeser Biyad. That only means if it's missing or it has more in its front feet. Aval Chasav Yeser Beregel. If it's in the back feet, treifa namahavi, it's a treifa. My timer, Kol Yeser Kenatel Domi. Guys, we had the whole sugya, the book of the itma. If it's missing its back foot, right, and the nirin are out. Anything that's extra, will view it as not there at all. Anything that's extra, will view it as not there at all, right? And therefore, it's like, if you look at the picture, it's like it's not there, and therefore it's a treifa. Therefore, it's a treifa. So it's like missing it. Kol yesa kinetula dami. So it's like it doesn't have it. A few cases. There was this animal, the Havile Tarti Sanya Divi. It had 2 Sanya Divi. Page Sanya Divi. If you take a look on page Tough, we said Sanya Divi, it's called, it's hated. The wolves don't even eat this. This is the disgusting part of the animal. That's where the feces goes, at the top there. See the two big things at the top left, guys, top left. That's the Sanya Divi. That's two Sanya Divi. So now, I still Ravina. They brought it to Ravina for Tarfa mid Rav Huna. Using Rav Huna's din, that anything that's extra, it's like it's missing. So this is like missing the Bnei Miyayin, like it's a mashu. It's asa. But if they spill into each other, take next bottom picture, guys. If they shuffle nadadi, then what? Then it's okay. Kshera. Good? That's the bottom picture. Hahi gufsa the having nothing kase l'havlila. You have a tube that was going from the base psychosis to the keva. Like that's picture Tuf Aleph, upper picture. Okay, it's going from the hemsis. Excuse me, I said the keva. It's going from the hemsis to the base psychosis. Savar Rav Ashi l'mitzrafei thought to made a treifa. Amalei Rav Huna marbar orchia Rav Ashi. Kol hani chave brisa. We had brisa. All these animals of the midbar, the wild animal, that wild, and they're here. They graze in the fields. Hachi islu. They have that tube going from the hemsis to the basic crisis, so therefore it's kasha. Hahu gufsa dahavi me avra mi be kisei lekarse. Okay, this one went from the basic crisis to the keres. Okay, this one. And Sova Mabar Avashi Lachshure, just like when it goes from the hemsis to the basic crisis. So Amalei Ravash Aishia Atukulu Bechoda Michsa Michasnehu. On all these things, are they woven on the same rack? In other words, Hahechad de Itmar Itmar, Hechad la Itmar la Itmar. In other words, you can't say, well, this has a tube going from this stomach to that stomach, it's not a treifa. Then going from this stomach, it's also not a treifa. It's not true. That we had a barometer for the hemsis going to the base of crisis. Why? Because we had animals. We saw animals that lived and had it. Now you have a tube going from the hemsis to the base of crisis to the hemsis. Is a treifa because you don't have any animals to go ahead and substantiate that. Itmar, Heyed Nosim Bar Shila Rav Tepchayed Sipure. Rav Nosim Bar Shila, who was the head butcher in Sipure, Lefnei Rebbe, in front of Rebbe Yehuda Nasi. Al Shnei Bnei Me'ayin Hayotzim Min Behema. Two Bnei Me'ayin that came out of the animal. Ke'echad Shi Treifa U'Kenegdon Bo'if K'Shera. B'Medavam Mamurim Shi Yotzim B'Shnei Mekaymis. They came out of two different places. Al Yotzim Makam Echad the Chulin Ad Ke'etzba K'Shera. Now we're going to huge machloikus over here. Page tough base, guys. Tough base. So he shows you two. You have two Bnei Me'ayin over there. Good. Now, we're saying that it's kosher. We're saying it's kosher when they're kolin be'etzba. Now, what exactly is the machloikis? Let's see the picture, and then we'll see the words inside. Okay. In the first picture, at the bottom of Tuf Gimel, the bottom picture number 440. Picture number 440. So let's start at the bottom. It goes from the keva. Now it's going into the intestine. Now it branches off into the two, and that branch is the width of a finger, and then it goes back together again normally. Good. Next page. Next page. One says that it goes over here, and it doesn't, and it's two at the end, like that. So the question is, why does if it goes two all the way to the end, why does it mean ad ke'etzba? And the answer is the bottom picture. It goes to the end, but when it gets right at the end, it's ke'etzba. It connects together at the end. Good. Let's see it inside. Second wide line. Let's go. First white line. Al shnei bnei yana yotzim min abehema ke'echad she treifa u'kenegdam ba'oif k'sheira. B'medam amurim when it's a treifa she yotzim b'shnei mekaymis. Al b'yotzim b'makam echad v'kolin if they comes out from one place, then they separate for kolin and they come together ad ke'etzba then k'sheira. Pligi b'Rav Ami Ravasi chadama hu dehodri va'arvei One says that it goes right. The hadre and the arve, it comes mixed. That's the little one. It comes together again. The charoma afagav loy hadre v'arve. It doesn't come together at all. Bishleim l'mad yama hu the hadre v'arve hainu b'kani ad ke'etzba. Right. That's that little oval shape that came together. Elamando ama afagav lahadre v'arve may ad ke'etzba. If you have two pipes going to the end, what do you mean ad ke'etzba? It says ad ke'etzba m'lamata. Like when it gets towards the mat, it gets towards the end. It's what it's okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Im nitla hanoitza psula. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion if the down feather is taken away, it's psula. Now, well, you know why, guys? Because it's considered part of the skin. It protects the animal. It's like a gluda. So if you're missing that, it's like an R. So again, the key to understanding the next piece of Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda views the down feathers as part of the skin. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shmuel, Amud Davar Echad. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shmuel, they both say the same thing. Rabbi Yehuda Hadam Maroin, that the feathers are part of the skin. Rabbi Shmuel Ditnan, Rabbi Shmuel Oimer, Hanoitza mitztarefes. The noitza is mitztaref l'inyan pigel. If you have machshava, this is the way Rashi learns, guys. If you have machshava and pigel in different parts of the bird, right, it's going to go ahead, and if it's mitztaref to kazayas, it's going to be pigel. We're going to say the down feathers are considered what? They're considered mitztaref. They're considered an achila. So it must be the feathers. They must be considered orv. It's considered an achila, right? So now, Amar Rava Dilma Loihi Ad Kan Loikam Rabbi Yehuda Hacha Elilian Treifa the Lecha Midi Dimogan Alecha because there's nothing else to protect. Aval Inyan Ifgule Karabanan Sfir who they hold feathers are feathers and they're not going to be an achila and they'll agree with the Rabbanan who argue Rabbi Yishmael that they're not mitztaref. V'ad Kan Loikam Rabbi Yishmael Hasan by Ipigo Aval Inyan Ifgule. Aval Inyan Elul Inyan Kula Aval Inyan Treifa Iguri Limagan. It doesn't help at all. If it doesn't help at all, if it can't be considered the skin, in Mamela, he could say that what? It's not considered a treifa. Says the Mishnah. Achusas hadam, if you have an animal that is oiches dam, it needs to be bloodlet. Vamushenes, it inhaled smoke. Vamutsunenes, it got cold. Usha'achla hirdufni, it ate hirdufni, which is poison for an animal. Usha'achla tsoyas tanagoyim, it ate the feces of a chicken. Or he drank water that was megala, was giloi. In other words, you have to worry about snake venom. Kshera, in all cases, it's kasha. Achla sama maves, if it ate some poison. Or shekisha nachor was bit by a snake. Muteres mishum treifa, basur mishum sakonis nefashis. You want to eat it, but be careful at your own, go at your own will, go further. So in other words, the key is sama maves. It's not a treifa, but you can't eat it because of sakona. It's a much better reason. Amashmul, he'll eat a chilsis treifa. If you swallow chilsis, it's treifa. My timer, the mintkavaluhu l'mayneha. It's very sharp, this chilsis, and it's going to pierce the organs of the animal. Maser Rav Shizvi, achusis adam, bamushenes, ushachler dufni, ushachlet soyasanu goylim, ushasa mayim aroyim. Right now it's like the Mishnah, and now if this is Tosefta, here's what it doesn't say in the Mishnah. He'll eat a teya, something called teya, chilsis. If it eats chilsis, upilpelim, and pickles, achla samamaves, kshera, it's kasha. So now you have two kashas, guys. One, you have chilsis, it says it's okay. And secondly, samamaves, it says it's okay. It says kshera, right? It says the Gemara, continues the Hikisha nachash ashenashcha kelev shaita or a mere dog bit it. Muteres mishum treifa b'sum mishum sanas lefashis. Kasha chilsis al chilsis. Our Mishnah says chilsis is what is a treifa because it's going to go ahead. Not Shmuel said chilsis is Shmuel said chilsis is a treifa because it's going to pierce the organs. We have a brisa that says chilsis is muta. Kasha samamavis is samamavis. Our Mishnah says samamavis is not a treifa. And it's a sakana, and this says it's kshera, and it's not a sakana. It says Gemara chilsis lekasha kan ba'olim. The brisa that said that it's not a problem is speaking the leaves of the chilsis. Kan, when Shmuel said his din bekartin, it was speaking about the grain. The grain is sharp, and that's going to cause what the organ to be pierced. Samamavis. Our Mishnah says kshera. Here it's our Mishnah said it's kshera, but it's asur al swad al sakonas nefashis. and the Brisa says it's kshera, meaning there's no sakana. Lekasha hadida. The Brisa is speaking about if the animal swallowed poison, that's poison for the animal, but not for basav adam. So therefore, a person can eat it. Our Mishnah is speaking the adam samamaves, the behema, right? The adam. So if the behema ate poison for an adam, it's not a treifa because the animal's not going to be affected. But if the adam eats it, well, you will be affected, and that's our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Sama Mavis the Behema Haino Herdufni. You just on the Tosefta. Guys, going back to the Tosefta. After it says Gemara, second line. Maser of Shizvi, Achus Sadam, Mishenis Achla Herdufni. Okay, you said Achla Herdufni, that's what? That's poison. Then you get back, Achla Sama Mavis, it's also poison. So you double down on the poison. If you Zetstein, it's speaking about poison of an animal, why are you repeating it twice? Says the Gemara, Hainu Herdufne, and for Gemara, Trey Gavni Samamavis. My Teya, we said in the Bryce the Sefta, it said if it eats Teya, right? If it eats Teya, where was Teya? If it ate Teya, it's kasha. What is Teya? Rabbi Huda, Amid Aleph, Ikra de Mararisa. It's the root of Mararisa, again, some type of plant. Okay? And we'll stop over here. Tomorrow we begin